Some UFO researchers have made a link between the numbers of people who go missing every year and alien abductions. Could it be that some of the millions of individuals who go missing worldwide in a year, 600,000 in the US alone, are simply the non-returned, for whatever reason, humans? Many experiencers claim to have encountered human-looking beings during their onboard journeys, sometimes even groups of humans willingly working with the extraterrestrials in a subterranean or underwater landing base. In this account, provided to mutual UFO network field investigator Preston Dennett and included in his 2020 book Onboard UFO Encounters, the abductee certainly seems to have become an enthusiastic interstellar traveller. The account was provided by a man called Tony T, who in 1978 was a college student. He and a group of about 6 friends often had weekends away when they were able to stay in a remote cabin one of them had access to. This was located in the deserts outside of Palm Springs, California. On one evening during one of these trips, one of the students, whom he called Paul, decided to take a late-hour walk on his own. He was away for several hours, to the extent that Tony and the other guys were starting to become worried. It was out of character for their friend to be absent for so long. The group were just preparing to venture out and search for him when he suddenly returned to the cabin. They expressed their concern and asked him where he had been. Paul's answer shocked them. He said that he had seen some aerial object land in the distant hills and had set out walking to find out what it was. He informed them that it was a UFO. His friend's shock turned to scepticism, one saying that he was having them on and that he didn't believe in that kind of stuff. Some ridiculed him and told him to button it, but Tony believed in UFOs and also knew that Paul wasn't the kind of person to joke about such phenomena. He was interested in what Paul had seen and started questioning him about the incident. When he asked about Paul's experience and what the UFO looked like, everyone in the group turned and listened. Paul told them that the craft was a saucer kind of shape and that there were people around it who were aliens but looked a bit like humans. He gave a long description of the beings, which Tony later identified as typical greys or even grey-human hybrids. He described the beings as about 5 feet in height, with greyish skin, large dark eyes and bald heads, all wearing white uniforms. Seeing these figures walking around on the outside of their ship, he went down towards them to find out what was happening. He approached the beings and, when asked, said that he had spoken to them and had even gone inside their ship and looked around. On talking to the aliens, he was told that they would be returning to that location on a certain day in about a year's time. Their travelling schedule indicated that they would be revisiting the exact same spot. Their reason for telling him this was that they were wondering if he wanted to go with them. They were happy to take him along with them at that future time. With his friends protesting disbelief, Paul insisted that the extraterrestrials had definitely assured him that if he wanted to come along, then he should be back at that place on the same day, 1 year from then. When asked by the friends what he was intending to do, Paul said that he was going to think about it. Despite the others still being dismissive of Paul's account, Tony believed him and was keen to see what his decision would be. Paul seemed to have made up his mind fairly quickly when, over the next few months, he started getting rid of his possessions, giving a lot of them away. The people around him became worried, with his family concerned that he was going through some kind of mental breakdown. One after another, he said of his belongings that he didn't need this or that anymore and would give it away or dispose of it. Tony asked him about it several times, whether he was thinking of going away with the visitors he had met. Paul said that he was going back to their landing place, but he still hadn't made up his mind if he would be leaving with them. There wasn't a lot to say about this, except that Tony asked that he be sure to let everybody know where he was going. At this point, he did not really believe that Paul would actually exit the earthly realm, as the whole proposition seemed bizarre. However, his friends seemed to be seriously planning to revisit the site of his encounter, and sure enough, come the day, did just that. Precisely a year after his experience, Paul drove off into the desert alone with the intention of meeting up again with the extraterrestrials. Tony reported that after his departure to revisit that place in the desert, the group of friends heard nothing from him. Paul's parents were worried about him, and after a couple of days they called the other young men to ask about where he had gone. Tony and the others said that they knew pretty much where he had set out for, and so all of them, including family members, travelled out to that location. There they found Paul's car, just parked out in the middle of nowhere in that remote desert area. Some of the group wondered if he may have taken his own life, but he was nowhere to be seen, just his car with, inside, his car keys. At the age of 22, he had disappeared and was never seen again, nor did he ever contact anyone. Tony said that following the discovery of Paul's abandoned car with the keys inside, his parents made a missing persons report. The police initially questioned them extensively and then started to question Paul's group of friends, including Tony. Each of the young men told them what had taken place on that fateful evening when Paul had claimed to come across the landed UFO and then been invited by the extraterrestrials to join them. All would have had a consistent account of Paul's alleged sighting and his report of what had happened during his encounter with the beings. They were really just relating what he had said out there in that desert location. The police were unable to come to any other conclusion than what the witnesses had reported, and thus Paul had literally vanished from the face of the earth. To this day, his friend Tony speculates about where he is, whether he is still alive and living out his life somewhere out in space on board a UFO. Researcher Tom Thompson on Cortex Zero talks about a common assumption that all UFO abductees are returned, but he also suggests a possible connection with the huge numbers of people who go missing from the world every year. He refers to not-so-friendly UFO incursions into human communities, such as the Colares attack on Brazil in 1977, and the increasingly documented hidden bases where abductees may be taken. A case in point are those speculated by retired Air Force engineer Marius Bourayan, now living in the Solomon Islands. He believes that a network of interconnected underwater bases cum laboratories has been established in the remote location, a phenomenon which he says is even acknowledged by long-term residents. Another researcher, former San Jose police officer David Paulides, investigates those who have disappeared without a trace in US national parks, also suggesting a possible link with UFO abductions. He estimates that North America has recorded at least 1,600 unexplained disappearances. That's quite apart from the more than 600,000 persons who go missing in the United States every year. In a majority of the parks cases, there are no tracks left behind, and canine searchers can't pick up a scent trail. Sometimes the missing person's clothing or personal items are discovered, with no clues as to how they got there. Theories as to the fate of the non-returned missing paint a dystopian scenario that requires further exploration.